glad and rejoice in thee. I will sing praise to thy name, O thou most high. And so we're gathered again this morning to praise him with our whole heart. He does not want any half-heartedness. He wants whole heart worship, wholehearted service. And so we're here to give him our all, because he gave his all for us. Let's stand and go to the Lord in prayer. Our Heavenly Father, God, we thank you and we praise you for this beautiful morning. But Lord, most of all, we thank you for the light of your Son who shines in our hearts. Lord, for lighting our way to you, Lord, through your word. God, you're so good to us, and Lord, we just want to give you thanks. Lord, we give you praise today. Lord, this Thursday morning, we ask that you would just bless your people, and Lord, that as we've gathered in your presence, that we would worship you with our whole heart, our whole mind, our whole soul, and our whole body. God, let it be completely given to you. God, we ask that you would bless the singing this morning, and Lord, the preaching, use it for the building of your kingdom. And in your Son's name we pray. Amen. Amen.
This is for Brandon, page 130. I never shall forget the day. Long years ago, when out in sin, I had no hope, no peace within. Down on my knees in agony, I prayed to Jesus and he kindly set me free. I never shall forget the day when all the burdens of my soul rolled away. It made me happy, glad and free. I'll sing and shout it, for he's everything to me. Now I can live him by my side. My feeble stands, he comes to guide. When trials come, he comforts me. Through faith in him or sin, I have the victory. I never shall forget the day when all the burdens of my soul rolled away. It made me happy, glad and free. I'll sing and shout it, for he's everything to me. Oh, sinner, come to Jesus now, at his dear feet. Just on without, confess to him your every sin. He'll send the way to give you peace and joy within. I never shall forget the day when all the burdens of my soul were rolled away. It made me happy, glad and free. I'll sing and shout it, for he's everything to me. I never shall forget the day when all the burdens of my soul were rolled away. It made me happy, glad and free. I'll sing and shout it, for he's everything to me. Let's all stand, fellowship, gather around the altar for prayer. We're going to sing 276, Prayer Bells in Heaven. While we are living in this world of care, many the burdens that we have to bear. But there's a prayer bell at the Lord's right hand. Give it a ring and you will understand. Prayer bells in heaven, oh how sweetly they ring, bearing a message unto Jesus the King. When you are burdened shepherd and the keeping song. Where does heavenly the man belong? Where does heaven how sweetly they ring, bearing our message unto Jesus the King. When you are burdened down from trouble and care, bring on and on, for God will answer your prayer. When Paul and Silas both were thrown in jail, they did not worry who would go their way. But on the prayer bells they began to ring. On the songs that they began to sing. Prayer bells of heaven, oh how sweetly they ring, bearing our message unto Jesus the King. When you are burdened down with trouble and care, bring on and on, for God will answer your prayer. Into the garden Jesus went to pray, until his sweat became as blood, they say, ringing the prayer bells there in agony, bringing salvation that we might be free. Prayer bells of heaven, oh how sweetly they ring, bearing our message unto Jesus the King. When you are burdened down with trouble and care, bring on and on, for God will answer your prayer.
Praise the Lord. Prayer request this morning. Sure, by uplifted hand we acknowledge needs that may go unspoken, but God knows all about those. Let's gather in for prayer, and let's just all go to the Lord's throne. songs this morning. The youth have some special songs. The youth and Brian. I could just say the youth and Brian step up here, but I had to say the youth and Brian.
Pray for Marcus. He needs a lot of help.
I'm on a journey to a heavenly city. The lights of home are in my view. Though I may stumble in the time of trouble, still I am determined to go through. I'm gonna press this for mark for the prize. I see what's waiting on the other side. Though the valleys low and the mountains high, I'm gonna press toward the mark. I'm gonna press toward the mark. I'm gonna press toward the mark for the prize. My mind's made up and I'm gonna make it. Though I have been tested and tried, I'm gonna forget about those things which are behind me. I'm running towards the finish line. I'm gonna press toward the mark for the prize. I see what's waiting on the other side. Oh, the valley's low and the mountains high. I'm gonna press toward the mark. I'm gonna press toward the mark. I'm gonna press toward the mark for the prize. My mind's made up and I'm gonna make it. Though I have been tested and tried, I'm gonna forget about those things which are behind me. I'm running toward the finish line. I'm gonna press toward the mark for the prize. I see what's waiting on the other side. Though the valley's low and the mountains high, I'm gonna press toward the mark. I'm gonna press toward the mark. I'm gonna press toward the mark for the prize. I'm gonna press toward the prize. I see what's waiting on the other side. Though the valley's low and the mountains high, I'm gonna press toward the mark. I'm gonna press toward the mark. I'm gonna press toward the mark for the prize. I'm gonna press toward the mark for the prize. We need our spirit-filled preachers to teach us right from wrong. We need our old-fashioned seekers who pray all night long. We need some good gospel singing to help us go another mile. The church will triumph. Oh, Lord, and go home in a little while. After all of this trial, we'll hear Jesus call. It'll be worth it after all, child. It'll be worth it after all. After all of this crying, it'll be worth it after all. When you're down in the old valley, prayer is all that I can do. The Lord sends me deliverance, and He strengthens you. Now when you're up on that mountain, see me struggling along, just lift my name up to Jesus. Let's help each other make it home. It'll be worth it after all, child. It'll be worth it after all. After all of these trials, we'll hear Jesus call. It'll be worth it after all, child. It'll be worth it after all. After all of this climbing, it'll be worth it after all.
All right, well, Patrick's coming up here to sing his song. Go ahead, come on, Patrick. So, last night, we kind of had a little bit of a goalie washer for the kids. So, and if you knew, I'm not start crying, so bear with me. If you knew some of the stuff that Patrick may be going through or went through, and you see him last night, you would think it was the same person. He's going to sing a song, and last night he came up and said, I have a song that I want to sing. We just said, okay, go for it. Yeah, do whatever. So it's never heard a song sung any better than I heard it last night. So it's Chainbreaker, and go ahead and we're gonna all come in and sing with me. So pick it up, and he's gonna lead us in that. So you just think, if you knew some of the chains Patrick has had broken, you might want to get ready to shout because it's gonna touch your heart. So. Walking the same old road for miles and miles. You've been hearing the same old voice tell the same old lies. If you're trying to fill the same old holes inside, there's a better life. There's a better life. You've got pain. He's a pain taker. If you feel lost, he's a way maker. If you need freedom or saving, he's a prison shaking savior. If you got chains, he's a chain breaker. We've all searched for the light of day in the dead of night. We've all found ourselves worn out from the same old fight. We've all run to things we know just ain't right. And there's a better life. There's a better life. If you've got pain, he's a pain taker. If you feel lost, he's a way maker. If you need freedom or saving, he's a prison shaking savior. If you got chains, he's a chain breaker. If you believe it, if you receive it, if you can feel it, somebody testify. if you believe it, if you receive it, if you can feel it, somebody testify, testify. If you believe it, if you receive it, if you can feel it, somebody testify. If you got pain, he's a pain taker. If you feel lost, he's a way maker. If you need freedom or saving, he's a prison shaking savior. If you got chains, he's a chain breaker. If you need freedom or saving, he's a prison shaking savior. If you got chains, he's a chain breaker.
Yesterday we were trying to come up with some fancy arrangement for some song that didn't have a clue what we were going to sing. Freaking out because we didn't have more than a couple songs ready for this morning. And after that happened last night, we all just said, well, now we know why we couldn't think of anything else to sing. Because we weren't the ones that were supposed to be singing. So, I guess Brian did preach a song. I'm not preaching.
Oh my, that's wonderful. Praise the Lord. Great job, Patrick. Amen. Great place to be this morning, isn't it? We were able to tune in after our service last night. God poured out His Spirit again on us last night at Rubyville, and we just feasted on the presence of God. It sounded like Joey Nelson had a good service too. Despite him preaching, they still had a good service. I'm kidding. I'm off. And then you got to tune in and watch what God did for you all last night. Bless you, Kim. Amen. Amen. Bless you. Just amazing to see what God did for you all last night, too. He had blessed us with a wonderful camp. And so we're here on Thursday morning, and we ask that you would just be obedient to His will again today, and pray for us as we do our best to share with you what God has laid upon our heart for this morning. Turn to the book of Hebrews chapter 12, very popular scripture. Hebrews chapter 12. We'll read verses 1 and 2 this morning. Hebrews chapter 12. Reading verses 1 and 2. If you have it, say amen. All right. Wherefore, seeing we also are compassed about so great a cloud of witnesses, let us lay aside every weight and the sin that does so easily beset us. Let us run with patience the race that is set before us, looking unto Jesus, the author and finisher of our faith, who for the joy that was set before him endured the cross, despising the shame, and is set down at the right hand of the throne of God. I want to focus on verse 2, and we're actually only going to preach a portion of this first part where it says, looking unto Jesus, the author and finisher of our faith. And I want to talk about Jesus this morning as being the author of our faith. Author of our faith. The word author, if anybody study their Bible, we know that the original text was written in the New Testament, was a large portion of it was written in Greek. So when we try to decipher the meanings of certain scriptures, it's very important that we find the original meaning and what those words meant to better understand what God was trying to say. I believe it's up for debate, but I believe Paul was writing the book of Hebrews. Our pastor has been preaching a series of messages out of Hebrews, And we know Hebrews was written to Hebrews. And so the word author in this text literally means a chief leader or a prince. And it even describes it in more detail. One that takes the lead in anything and thus affords as an example. And then also it can mean a pioneer. So basically, when you look at it in that term, it gives us a more deeper appreciation of what Jesus really is in our life. He is a chief leader. He's a prince. He is one that takes the lead and then becomes an example. And he's a pioneer. And that shows us this morning that Jesus is much more than what we would liken an author in the modern day. But he is one that orchestrates and plans our life from start to finish. And that's what an author does. And so today we're going to look at this just a little bit detailed about the author and about Jesus as the author. But first of all, by way of introduction, we have to include verse 1 in this passage and in this sermon this morning, because Paul in Hebrews chapter 11, of course, we know it's what we call the Hall of Faith. And he lists a great number of people, some named, some unnamed, that all made it to the end and they ran their race. And so that's what he starts chapter 12 rather, and says, "Wherefore, seeing we are compassed about by this great cloud of witnesses," which were listed in Hebrews chapter 11. He said, "Let us lay aside," and he gives them some admonishment here. "Let us lay aside every weight and the sin which does so easily beset us, and let us run with patience the race that is set before us." And then he gives specific instruction. He says, "Looking unto Jesus, the author and finisher of our faith." He was saying that these people that have laid the path, that the earthly people would call pioneers, but that the earthly people would call the authors, those that maybe have trailblazed the way in front of us. He said it's important that we look to those people because they give us a great cloud of witnesses, or an example, so to speak, on how we should live our life and how we should finish well. But he said if we're going to understand what true Christianity is all about, and the word looking here in this text in the Greek actually is more than just gazing upon something. What it literally means is you focus on one thing, but then you stop focusing, and then you focus on another and turn your attention to someone else. So what he was saying is, although these people in Hebrews 11 were very important to the Christian faith, if we're going to understand what true Christianity is and true faith is all about, we have to turn our focus away from those that come behind us and look to Jesus, who is the real author and finisher of our faith. And as I was thinking about this for this morning, my heart and my mind has been, of course, every time I come to these grounds, my mind is flooded with memories and emotions and people in my life that have been a patriarch or pioneers in my own Christian faith. And I sincerely appreciate Jeremy. He is working on a huge project to get the history of our denomination recorded as much as possible as the recordings are out there. We're making videos and he's doing interviews with people, trying to get this history and this heritage wrote down, because if we don't write it down now, we're going to forget it. And some of the important things that have been passed down from generation to generation all the way back starting in 1930 need to be reminded about every so often about what we came from and to where we are now. And so as Jeremy was interviewing me yesterday, and as I began to think about the memories that flooded my mind, and the names started popping up in my mind, and I began to be overcome with emotion because of all the people that have had a great influence in my life. Many of you are here this morning and had a great influence in my life. I've been here my entire life since I told you Monday, I was at my mama's womb up here on the stage. And so I've lived my entire life here at these campgrounds, and they are so important to me. And I would not be where I'm at. I would not be where I'm at spiritually if it was not for the heritage and the influence, my own heroes of the faith, that I can write in my own book that have been great in my life and instrumental in my life. But I have to truly understand, if I'm going to make it to heaven, I can't focus upon the patriarchs of this world. No, I've got to look unto Jesus, the author and the finisher of my faith. He is the one that orchestrates my faith. Even though those people were great influences in my life spiritually, they were not the author of my faith. And we have to understand that this morning. People are important and they play vital parts in our life. In fact, I believe God places them in our lives for specific reasons. But we have to understand that Jesus is the true author of our faith. And when I think about Jesus this morning, I think about Him as the Alpha and Omega. He is the first and the last. He is the beginning and the end. He's the author of my faith. He's the one who created this universe, and He holds it together. He is the one who always was and always is and always will be. He's the one who's unmoved. He is unchanging. He's undefeated, and He's never outdone. He was bruised that I might be healed. He was pierced to ease my pain. He died to give me life. He fought the battle against darkness to bring me peace. Worlds cannot understand Him. Armies couldn't defeat Him. Schools can't explain Him. Leaders can't ignore Him. Herod couldn't kill Him. Pharisees couldn't confuse Him. Nero couldn't crush Him. New Age can't replace Him. He is the light of my life. He is the love of my life. And He is the Lord of my life. He is goodness. He is kindness. He is gentleness. He is God. He is holy. He is righteous. He is pure. And He is powerful. His ways are right. And His word is true. He's my Redeemer. He's my Savior. And He's my guide. And He is my peace. He's my joy. He's my comfort. And He's my hope. I serve Him because I love Him. And His yoke is easy. And His burden is light. He gives me life that I might have life more abundantly. He is all powerful. He is all knowing. He is all loving, and He is all caring. He is the same yesterday, today, and forever. He will never leave me. He will never forsake me. He will never mislead me, and He will never forget me. When I fall, He picks me up. When I fail, He forgives me. When I'm weak, He is strong. When I'm lost, He shows me the way. When I'm afraid, He stands by my side. When I'm hurt, He heals me. When I'm broken, He mends me. When I'm confused, He leads me. When I'm hungry, He feeds me. And when I have problems, He's the problem solver. That's who Jesus is this morning. He's the author of our faith. He's the author of our faith. So when I begin to think about Jesus as an author, of course our minds automatically go to what an author does, or what an author is. Author, most of the time, writes or produces a body of work, whether it be written or other production. But as I begin to study upon authors, there's many different ways to get to where I'm at today. But basically, an author breaks down a book or a story or a novel into 3 different sections. And that's what I want to focus in on this morning. There's 3 different sections that an author deals with. They deal with conception, they deal with chapters, and they deal with the conclusion. That's pretty much what a book is. An introduction or conception, chapters in the middle, and the conclusion at the end. And that's what Jesus is, the author of our life. Remember, He's the author. That means He starts it, He writes the middle, and He finishes the end. That's what Jesus does this morning. So let's look at Him in that aspect. First of all, Jesus as being the author means He's there at conception, or the introduction of our life. Of course, our minds, preachers, you know where I'm going. Jeremiah writes in chapter 1, verse 5, he said, "Before I formed thee in the belly, I knew thee, and I ordained thee." That means He ordered and created and authored and orchestrated a specific purpose before you were even formed in your mother's belly. Now that is, I just cannot grasp my mind around that, and I'm not even going to try to. I'm just going to believe it. Because if I look back in my life for these last 43 years, I can see God's hand and how He's ordained and how He's structured and how He's orchestrated my life. Have I always followed His will and His way? I have to admit, no, I haven't. But I'm so thankful that even though there's been bad times and there's been times when I've been disobedient, He has orchestrated the right things to put me back on the right path. And listen, folks, you may think you have a life this morning with no purpose. You may think you don't know what direction you're going. And you may not know physically in your own right. But listen, Jesus knows, and He's orchestrated a plan just for you. That's why we must trust Him in every way. Proverbs 3, 5, and 6 says, "Trust in the Lord with all thy heart, and lean not unto thine own understanding. In all thy ways acknowledge Him, and He shall direct thy path." Listen this morning, when we put our trust in Jesus Christ, that means we're not reacting to things that happen in our life. When we react to things that happen in our life, my friends, that means we're going to get in trouble. But if we are proactive and ask God to lead us not into temptation, ask Him to lead and guide and direct our lives, I'm telling you what, the things may happen that may knock us out or knock us in the gut, so to speak, and knock the wind out of our sails. But we know that if God is orchestrating it and He is in control, I'm telling you what, it makes our life much easier. We can have peace knowing that He's the author at the beginning of our lives. He is there from the beginning. And He's ordained a specific purpose for your life. As my mind again was going back to times here, and a few months back, we had to say goodbye to a dear saint of God in our church. And her name is Frances Payne. Many of you know Frances. Maybe you know the Payne family. And a lot of them have been coming to this camp for many, many years. And her husband, Pat Payne, is a dear, dear man of God, wonderful preacher. And this camp meeting was instrumental in his life. At the beginning of his ministry, this camp meeting was instrumental. I want to tell you that. He was struggling with the call to preach, and God had saved him out of a life of sin. Pat will tell you, he lived a life that he's ashamed to even say anything about, but he said, I know God's delivered me, and I know I'm free through the blood of Jesus. And he said, I knew God had a specific purpose in my life. And he just felt like it may be the call to preach. So he was struggling with that and didn't know exactly what to do or where to go. So they came here to the Christian Baptist camp meeting. And A.L. Baldridge was our general superintendent at that time. And some of you may even have been here in that service. You may not remember it, but you probably were here. But as A.L. stood up that service and started out the service, he said, you know what, I'm going to start out things just a little differently today. So he said, I want all the preachers in this sanctuary to stand up, in this tabernacle to stand up. And of course, Pat was struggling with the call to preach, and as soon as A.L. said, would all the preachers in the tabernacle stand up, Pat just stood up. And he said, it was like I didn't even know what I was doing. It was like the Holy Spirit just got a hold of my legs and my body and stood me up. And his family looked around at him and said, what in the world? We didn't even know what was going on in here, what you were struggling with. And Pat stood up, and A.L. looked back at Pat and said, that's why I had to do what I had to do. That man right there just surrendered the call to preach. A.L. had no idea what was going on in his life either, but he knew the Spirit of God, and he knew that God had ordained a specific purpose for Patrick Payne, and he has blessed us over the years with his anointed preaching, and God is still using him today to show us just how well to run this race. I'm telling you, folks, God has a specific purpose. He's the author of our faith. He's the author. So we have it at conception or the introduction. What else is He the author of? He's the author of the chapters in our life. So between the beginning and the end, there's a bunch of stuff in the middle. You'll find that when you read a book, sometimes there's good chapters, sometimes there's bad chapters. Sometimes there's chapters that leave you hanging. Sometimes there's chapters that lead on to the next chapter. But they're all a part of the book that the author's trying to create. And listen this morning, most of us are in that time of our life. We're in the chapters of our life. God is writing a beautiful novel of your life. And it all points back to Him. But we have to understand that sometimes the chapters that we face may not be good. They may not always be one that we want to say, wow, I'd like to go through that. Some of us would be like, well, I wish I knew what God was doing in my life a few years later. I don't know if you would. Because you may want to know how it's going to turn out, but I don't know if you want to know what it's going to take for you to get to point A to point B. I would have loved to be able to see when I started preaching 25 years ago, would be this September, where I would be at today. I would love to see the outcomes yet, but I really didn't want to know what was going to take in those 25 years to get me to where I'm at. See, because sometimes it takes ups and downs, sometimes it takes trials and storms. But listen, may we understand that even though there's a storm, even though there may be mountains, even though there may be valleys, remember this, God is the author of our faith. Everything He uses works out for our good. We may not understand it all, and we may never understand it, but I promise you this, whatever He does, He'll do it for your good and for His glory. Amen. Chapters ups and downs. But we got to remember He is in control. And I remember years ago when a chapter that God wrote in my life at the age of 13, when he wrote juvenile diabetes in my book. And I didn't know how in the world that I would face it. I didn't understand why He would put that in my book and include that as a chapter. And I know some of you others in here have dealt with that and are dealing with it. And I did not know, I didn't understand. I thought my life was over. I thought I'd never amount to anything. I thought I'd be sick my whole life. I never lived a normal life. You know how the devil likes to use those things that are totally false to get us down. You never have a purpose. You never do anything. You never play sports. You never, as a 13-year-old, that's what I was concerned about at the time. And as I began to pray about it and ask God to help me, and my parents were asking God to help me, and my dad was poured up. He knew all the medical things. So Dad's always a bundle of joy. He likes to look down the road at all the diseases that's going to happen 10, 15, 20 years later. Well, your feet will probably fall off. Thanks, Dad. Appreciate it. You'll lose your vision before you're 20. He just loves the encouragement. That is all about encouragement. But Mama, she knows how to be a real encourager. Instead of pretty much giving me the facts, she just hugged me and said, let's go pray about it, right? So we went to the bedroom and we both cried, but both of us didn't know what to do. We didn't understand it. Looking back at it now, I see that might have been a little bit, I just maybe was overreacting a little bit, but it just knocked the wind out of me. So we began to pray, and I said, Mom, what am I going to do? She said, Ryan, we're going to do what we've always done. She said, Ryan, I asked God the same question. My daughter died in a car wreck at 9 months old. What are we going to do? She said, your grandma told me the same thing. We're going to do what we've always done. It's so sweet to trust in you. No place to give up, no place to turn around. We keep on going and we press on tomorrow. So I can say now, after 31 years, almost 31 years of having juvenile type 1 diabetes, God's been faithful. He's often. He's used it as a testimony, as a platform to tell others that even though you may have a disease or sickness, God can still bring you through. He can do great things in your life. If you put your trust in Him and realize He's the home of our faith. So He's there at the conception. He's there at the chapters, but He's also there at the conclusion. The introduction just kind of gets you started. The chapters tell the story. But then the conclusion wraps it all up. My only problem is with God being the author. I don't know how many chapters it covers. You don't either. God may be writing the last page of your book right now. The conclusion of your life may be wrapping up. We just don't know. No man knows the day of the hour. The Son of Man's coming back, and it is appointed unto man who wants to die, and after this the judgment. And that appointment is the conclusion of your life, and God may be writing that right now. Regardless of how old or how young you are, He may be writing the conclusion of your life. But we have to understand the picture. We want to focus so much on a chapter or a word or a trial in our life, but God sees the whole picture. And when we understand that He's the author, that He's creating something beautiful, and most of all, creating us for eternity. I will show you this, and then I'll be closing at the conclusion. Calvary mentioned in our home church last night. He had no idea what I was planning to do today. He mentioned that I was an art major in school, and I was for a couple of years. And always loved art. I studied art in high school and loved it. what I was going to do with my life, and majored in painting and minored in drawing. And then I realized really quick why they call them starving artists. And those people that are really good at art are just about a half level off. So maybe that's, I'm just kidding. I put that on back of myself. That's supposed to be a joke for me. But anyway, no, so I realized right away I better do something else if I'm going to make money and make a living. But my favorite painting, Jimmy, that's second one. I want to show you my favorite painting of all time. Appreciate Jeremy for doing this for me. That's my favorite painting right there. Yeah, that's all right. That's the right there. Yeah, that's my favorite painting. You might say, well, what in the world is that? It's my favorite painting. It's called A Sunday Afternoon. A Sunday Afternoon in. It was painted by a man, George Seurat. George Seurat is from France back in 1886. This painting was painted. And George Seurat was a master of pointillism. He was an impressionist, and he was a master of pointillism. Now, if you don't know what pointillism is, I know I'm boring you, but please hang with me just for 1 second. Pointillism was they did not paint in brush strokes; they painted in dots. So this entire painting is 7 foot by 10 foot, and he painted the entire painting in dots. So if you would go in and look at this paint, this is looking at the painting right here. All you would see was this ugly green mess. But if you step away from the painting, from this ugly green, that's what you see. Those are millions of dots, strategically placed to create a beautiful portrait. Every one of those dots mattered. Every one of those dots had their place. When they were put together, the author painted a beautiful picture. Go back to that first one. This may be your life right now. This is just a dot. This is just a portion of that painting with the second one. But when God's finished. Amen. See, sometimes we focus on the individual dots, but we don't focus on what God's trying to do. He's orchestrating. He's altering our lives. And you may be a point in your life when all you see is an ugly dot. But I promise you, if you can step away, take your hands off, and see what God is doing. He's creating a beautiful masterpiece in your life. And one day the last dot will be placed, the last stroke of the brush will be canvas will be painted, the last word of your book will be written. And he'll close it. And he'll say, "Well done, thou good and faithful servant. You've been faithful over a few things, now I'll make you ruler over a many." But again, I'll reiterate, you don't know the Lord as your Savior, you don't know when that your chapter is being written. So the question is, are you ready? Are you ready for him to come back? Are you ready should anything happen to you? Maybe you're going through some times of trial, maybe you're just trying to focus on that green dot. God says, step away, let me show you what I'm trying to do. Are you trusting in him this morning? Is he the author of your life? Understand that when we put our faith and trust in him, he'll do exceeding abundantly above what we can ask him to do, according to the power that worketh in us. Levi, as you come time, your heads are bowed this morning. How many of you today could raise your hands and say, "Brian, I am going through some things in my life. I don't understand what God is trying to do just right now. But I need help and strength to trust him. Because I know he's faithful. I know he'll take care of me. But I need strength right now. I need grace to help me understand, be able to push through and persevere. I need help this morning." Is there one? Brian, pray for me. God bless you. Bless you. Any other? Bless you. Bless you. Thank you. Anybody else? Bless you, young lady. Thank you. Are you saved today? You know you're saved. If not, just raise your hand. Right, I need the Lord. I'm not where I need to be with God. Isn't one at all. We invite you to stand, invite you to come and pray. You've got to help you this morning. This altar is open as we sing.
Tis so sweet to trust in Jesus, just to take Him at His word, just to rest upon His promise, just to know a steadfast love. Jesus, Jesus, how I trust Him, how I prove Him more and more. Jesus, Jesus, precious Jesus, Lord, your grace to trust Him.
Sing the last verse. The last verse.
I'm so glad
Yes.
I learned to trust in precious Jesus, Savior, friend, and I know that Thou art with me, will be with me to the end. Jesus, Jesus, how I trust Him, how I prove Him more and more. Jesus, Jesus, precious Jesus, oh, for grace to trust Him.
As Jeremy comes, Dana Gallagher wanted me to remind those that, for those of you that will be here tonight for the Christian Baptist camp meeting reunion, that you'll need to remain here after church for a little bit to get a group picture. She wanted to make sure to remind you of that this morning for those of you that are here for the reunion this evening. All right, Brother Jeremy.
We will have Brother Vernon Moore preaching at the 2 p.m. service, and at noon time the restaurant will be open. And so we dismiss until that time to gather in to this place again, praises and thanksgiving.
Yes. I got up and come down here to see him.
I just like you.